and description. Okay. Do you have a little notification that you're being recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Then we are on. Um, hang on. Do we just, I mean, start, right? I find this
Okay.
Yeah.
awkward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess
So,
we can look at question one and then just discuss that one. The one, how does your knowledge of English morphology, that's the right
yep,
one, right? Affect how
yep.
you
Yes.
teach.
hmm
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have that much knowledge of English morphology. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I guess so, but it's hard to teach those kind of things when you don't teach, like, I guess,
Younger.
early grades. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, so I think, I mean, I know it's very important, but I know I had to do letters training. Have y'all heard of that before?
No.
Letters? And it's like it breaks down all these different, it's basically like you're teaching phonics. It was so hard. However, a lot of the teachers that are like older teachers, like, higher in age, they understood it. But I'm like, we don't understand it because we don't really have to teach that no more. Not unless we teaching like, elementary school.
Right.
I think with the the county with the implementation of new standards in my county, we are going to be focusing more on the Greek and Latin affixes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I know the kids who are like super serious about spelling bees, they know they're pretty good with it because they'll ask about the word origin to help them with the um spelling of it.
Yeah. Mhm.
We did not use it a lot in middle school, although we did use a vocabulary program online platform called Membean, and they had this cool feature where you could click on a word and it brought out like a whole map, the root word, related words, the prefixes, the suffixes. So that was kind of um, interesting.
Yeah.
What is our actual question? How does
That was the question basically.
oh,
We just started, like, another teacher printed off posters for all of us, based on the grade band, because that new curriculum is coming in, the new
yep.
standards rather. So, but for me, like, I have more practice with it with my son because he is
Mm.
smaller. So,
Okay.
helping him grow his vocabulary is where I kind of get to play around with it a little bit more. But it makes total
Mhm.
sense if we're looking at bilingual students and helping them actually really understand and build their vocabulary to
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
little bit more background in it. So, I mean, I
Mhm.
guess it kind of opened up a whole new train of thinking for me with going through this or these two modules. So it
It
kind
well,
of,
Yeah.
some of them are similar. The base words. I mean, I've done
Mhm.
a activity where I put I didn't make it up. We did it when I was ELA chair. We did it in one of our meetings, but a column full of common prefixes, then the root, then suffixes, and we saw how many words we could make combining
Mhm.
them.
okay.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of fun. And when you look at the words and say to the kids, all right, we've got biology, geometry, trigonometry, or whatever. Why they all have the same ending, or what is that? What do you think that means? And like, I think they gave the example of like, if geo is earth and thermal is, heat, you can take the words apart like that to just see what they mean. And they could always highlight in text, where they see similar um, root words.
Yeah. I used to, well, that kind of goes into question number two. So,
Oh,
Y'all want to hop to
wait.
question number 2? Because I was about to answer, but I feel like it kind of fits with question number 2.
Yeah.
This is an
Question number 2 is describe and discuss specific learning tasks, classroom activities. That's kind of what I think you just was telling, the classroom
Sorry.
activity or strategy that you use to build your students' awareness of morphemes and syntax. Um, I was gonna say I used to do this thing called a word within a word when I taught reading. Um, it was like the reading class is like a remedial reading class. I used to teach that. I used to do a word wall, and I would use little prefixes and suffixes, and they would have to build words. So we would call it word within a word. So they would have to take that word and add it to something else, or add it to, they'll have base words, and they'll have to add it prefixes or suffixes to make it a word. And that did build their vocabulary a lot. And these were kids that spoke English, but it did help a lot. Just having that word wall where they just had to like build on words.
Well, and it's one of the chapters, I think it was 3 with morphology, and I can't remember the term, but talking how the suffix can change like the part of speech or the
Yes.
meaning of a word,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
predicting or predictable or something like
Right.
that. I don't remember what it was called. Um, so yeah, then that's probably good to preview. I would think especially in science where there's a lot of technical language in the nonfiction text to preview the vocabulary and then, like we're all saying, take it apart into chunks or whatever.
I think that's probably the best way to do it, is to have them create new words using the
Mm-hmm.
prefix, suffix, and the root words and the
Yeah.
Yeah.
affix and all that good stuff. So I think that is beneficial. I think it's just we all just got different names for it,
Was
but
this
essentially
the
the same thing.
text? Was it this text? Because I'm doing something similar in another class that talked about having kids like make up words, like using, it was interesting. They would have to like make up a word using the different parts, and they could draw a picture with it and explain, even though it wasn't a real word, why it was like it
Why
could
does it
be
make sense to them, I guess?
yeah, like how
Yeah.
how they got it, like if they made some kind
Mm-hmm.
of weird monster or something. It was a cute idea, probably for younger kids.
You'd be surprised what the high schoolers look
I yeah,
forward to, because
that's
they
kind of
definitely look
thinking.
forward to stickers, and I'm like, really?
Seriously?
Stickers work? Yes, stickers
Oh
work.
God.
The stickers work for
Wow.
high schoolers?
Yes, candy. Candy works for everyone, but
Candy
stickers work
works for
still.
everyone. That's the bane of my existence. Okay, so did we do 2?
We
Yeah, I think we do
did,
too.
for
Okay,
the
so
most part. I think we covered 2.
okay, then how can teaching syntax and sentence structures improve your students' reading comprehension and writing abilities? I liked this section better. I liked syntax better than morphology. It just made more logical sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I was basically thinking, and I made little notes like, excuse me, all languages follow a pattern, but not all the patterns are the same, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in English, you have to learn, like we do, subject, predicate, or subject, verb, object. And that I think definitely helps with writing. So you recognize a pattern, and it helps, I think, with reading comprehension if you can identify who's the doer in the sentence, our subject, and what they're doing. I thought it was interesting reading that some of the languages, I think it was like the Asian languages, don't distinguish between sex and or gender. And
Mm-hmm.
they also had an example like in our language, I hope I get this right. If we said Peter sat on the cow, that's much different than the cow sat on Peter. But in
Yeah.
one of the languages, they kind of said it was the same, which maybe I misunderstood because I couldn't wrap my head around that one. They used an example with a horse.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
I've heard
Was
kids
was
say
it
that.
because I'm just trying to think of how a student may have said it. I don't know. I don't because I don't think they would say the horse sat on.
No, because some of their
Would it have been
languages,
horse Peter sat on?
it was something weird. Like they said the Russian languages, I think it was put the verb at the end. So I think structure would definitely help with, like I said, the reading comprehension to know who, what the subject is versus the verb,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
definitely in writing, like, Spanish, they don't say the book is blue, or no, the blue book, whatever. It's like the reverse of what we do.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think it'll help definitely with like their editing of their writing too, because now they're
Mm-hmm.
looking at sentence structure. But it's a lot to this that I did not know. Um, so yeah, it's a lot to this that I was not aware went into. I don't know, maybe because it's my first language and it's just how it was taught, but looking at it from the other perspective, it's a lot.
I thought so too, and I was really wondering, like when they're talking about, the patterns, right? I teach sixth grade. I have primarily advanced students, and as I told you guys, I really, any non first language English speaker has tested out of whatever test they take, that access thing. But when we do sixth grade was huge in pronouns and whatnot. And grammar is so, dependent on everything. And I'm like, okay, so your subject, who or what is doing something, it's going to be a noun or a pronoun. Well, when they don't know what a noun and a pronoun is, it makes it difficult. So I'm like, so now
Mm-hmm.
are we to understand the structure that we're saying, okay, an adjective, that's going to modify a verb, right? And it's going to answer these four questions. But I don't know, the terminology I would think would be difficult. And I think as well, I don't think, that they pick it up orally first. So there was that whole piece about how having open-ended conversations were good and to build on them. Like, so, my father hungry, that's where my father is hungry or whatever. But I'm with you. There was a lot I didn't know. Like I didn't really consider background knowledge. Um, like their structure could interfere or even with the comprehension of words, which I think had more to do with the language part of the reading rope. Sorry, I'm all over the map.
It's okay. I was gonna say that I think um teaching that syntax, it does kind of help them with their reading comprehension. Like you said, because they need to know like those subjects and verbs and things like that, which will in turn help with their writing. But I think that has a lot to do with why a lot of students who learn how to read in English don't know how to read in Spanish because the sentences are so different. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my students who read in English, I'm like, here, read this for me. It's in Spanish. They're like, I don't know how to read in Spanish. It's I think the structure, because of the structure is so different. That's why they don't know. Because they know the words, they know how to speak it. I think the structure is what kind of trips them up.
You're talking about an English speaker speaking Spanish?
Yeah, like if it's someone else, somebody who is very fluent in reading English,
Okay.
and they speak English, but they also are fluent in Spanish too. A lot of the kids who I
Okay.
have who speak Spanish and speak English, they cannot read in Spanish.
They
They
have
can
the
read in English,
communication
but they can't read in Spanish.
because they only
Gotcha.
have that communicational,
Yeah.
however you
Right.
want to word it, ability to speak because they're speaking it at home, but they're not necessarily reading it. They're just having
Right, but
that
I think the
conversation.
structure is so different. So that's why, because I'm like, how do you know how to speak Spanish, but you don't know how to read Spanish? And they're like,
Right.
well, I wasn't taught how to read Spanish. I was taught how to read in
That's
English.
that's why, yeah,
So
they're not fully literate in their own language. And
yeah,
then
I
that's
think
where
the
that
structure is so different. Like, how you were saying, like the verb could go at the end or whatever you
mm-hmm.
were saying, Nancy,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. That's why I think it's kind of confusing to them because it don't really make sense. in their eyes because they were taught to read in English and not in Spanish. So,
That's true. And I've noticed too, even with our native English speakers and definitely our English language learners, a lot of them can read the sentence. They cannot tell you what it means.
mhm.
Like those kids who love to, oh, I'll read it. And, they read it and, okay, so, what, and they can't tell you what they've read. And, or my favorite other one is when you have to read a play and it's always the kids who read with absolutely no inflections
Mhm.
that want the big part. But yeah, mm, I don't know. I would just, yeah.
Okay. Y'all want to go
Okay,
to the next one? Let's go to the next question.
sure. What challenges do you anticipate when teaching syntactical awareness to emergent readers and emergent bi and multilingual learners, and how can you address these challenges?
Mm,
Mm, if we are looking at starting off, like younger learners, I think
Hmm.
the terminology is what will kind of trip them up. The subject, predicate, modifier, things of that nature. I think that will trip them up based away from their home language. So a way to address that could be to do like act out the part of the sentence, like with visuals and gestures to kind of act out the sentence to show
okay.
them where each piece falls in line in the sentence. If that makes
Mhm.
sense.
That
Yeah, that
makes
makes sense.
sense. And
That's a good idea, actually.
they suggested the pictures too for the comprehension. Like, if it, I don't know, the lion is running and you'd have three different pictures and have to point to the one where that the lion is running, which now that I think of it, you could do that in not necessarily with pictures, but with index cards or something to shuffle to make different sentences. So they had a more kinesthetic experience to put a sentence together. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like in
Mhm.
its part.
Like a sentence puzzle or like a breaking down of the sentence and
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I don't know if it has a name, but I'm sure we've all done it, right? And then you would add to it, like instead of the cat runs, you would now have the cat runs fast. And then you build prepositional phrases. The cat runs, well, he would run quickly across the grass or whatever it is. But I think sentence starters would help a lot of kids too with formation.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously,
Mhm.
again, that open-ended conversation. Um, yeah.
I think one
Another,
thing that'll kind of be a challenge for them is that like they already come in not like knowing little, like they don't know that much about the English language. So it's going to be hard for them to kind of understand how to structure a sentence because they're still learning the language,
But when
as
that come in with
opposed
like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say as opposed to somebody who, learned the language from like birth. You know what I'm saying? Like it's their native language. It would kind of be more difficult if that's not their native language. That's what I was saying.
well, because
Okay.
they like you were saying earlier Tuesday, they might carry over their structure that they know that they
Yeah.
hear. So for syntax, that might be hard. And um, yeah, I won't pop back to morphology. And I guess mentor text would help a lot. Their challenges, like we said, not the limited vocabulary, probably limited
Mhm.
um uh yeah, oral communication, and that's, going to be impactful if you don't know your words, what they even mean orally, to start recognizing them in reading, that would be difficult.
Yeah. I think if you like like basically like what Nia was saying, how they acted it out. You can also like do that if you did like a sentence frame. I mean a sentence, not sentence. Is it a sentence frame?
There are frames, there are
Yes, a
starters.
visual sentence frame. So if you did like a visual sentence frame and you drew a picture, like if you said the man is running and you drew a picture of the man and then running, like something like that. It's the same thing like what Nia was saying, but just if they had to do like write it visually, versus acting it out. I think that would help too.
Yeah.
Because they do love to draw. The kids love to draw.
Well, that, I don't remember which one it was in, but when they get into like sequential order and some things like that, you know, one of the first things
Mhm.
they do is pictures. And even with my kids, when we like do sequence of events, like please believe making the comic strip is the most popular
Mm-hmm.
way to do that. Because then they really don't have to write a lot. They are just showing, and they've got, you know, all the fun digital tools to use with that. So, and there you go. Oh, I have an email. I don't know what are we, I just find these awkward. I'm sorry that I'm being recorded saying I find this awkward.
Oh, you're fine. Does she know she's muted?
Oh, am I muted?
No, Tuesday's muted.
Oh, Tuesday, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I have my parents' dog over here, and he just be going. So I had to mute. But I said, I think that's the last one. I think that was the last
Yeah, that's
question.
the last question. I just
Okay.
don't. I think we should still make sure we continue to like incorporate their home language as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, because they're going to notice some similarities. Of course, I can't pull one out of my head right now, but some of our words are,
Very
you know,
similar.
thank you, very similar. Or even context, like when kids talk to me and like, I didn't do whatever, and I go, ¿Por qué? And they're
Mhm.
like, because I didn't, da, 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 da." And I'm like, you know, so they got that I'm asking, you know, why?
Yeah.
Gestures, facial expression, intonation, all that. They all work together.
You're right.
Okay. Are we good?
I think so.
All right, ladies, then I will go to my struggle of how to upload this, and we need to get together. Oh my God, it was a nightmare.
Oh, we have to write again too, don't we?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. We have to put together she sent another
Is it our final?
samples. I thought it said for the last, but have we only
Do you
done,
want to stop recording while we're
I,
talking about this other
yeah, I could
part?
do that. Hold please. Hold please. Okay. Stop recording. Recording, stop recording transmission, stop